I believe that increasing diversity in the workplace is predicated upon having an effective interview team. Every person selected on your interview team must get it, want it, and have the capacity to do all of the work associated to the role of an interviewer. Hey, I'm Jen Tardy, your diversity recruiting coach. And in today's video, I'm going to unpack what I mean by get it, want it, and capacity to do it, where interview teams typically go wrong. Plus, I'm going to help you to determine if your current interview team is up for the job of diversity recruiting and hiring. Let's go. Before we dive in, two things. First, any point, if you love this video and you want to see more videos like this, be sure to give us a thumbs up. It's the only way that we're going to know if you're enjoying these topics, and subscribe to the channel while you're over there. Second, let me give a little disclaimer. This get it, want it, capacity to do it model is one that I've borrowed from Gary Wickman, who's the author of the book Traction, which I love this book, by the way. It's a model that's easily transferable into the world of diversity recruiting. Developing your interview team this way will help you to create more dedication, engagement, and accountability among those who are on the front lines of increasing diversity within your company. So ultimately, it's going to make your job in selecting the right candidates even easier. Let's start first with the idea of get it. Get it means that anyone selected to interview on your interview team must understand the role for which they are assessing candidates. In other words, they must understand the job description, and in particular, the minimum and preferred qualifications. This interview team must also understand the assessment factors for which they are accountable. Examples of assessment factors are things like evaluating a person's leadership style versus evaluating someone's technical ability. Does your interview team know which assessment factors for which they're held accountable? If they do not get it or understand the job description, it leaves room for the interview team to assess candidates based on factors that they come up with. This is actually how bias seeps in. Factors can begin to have more to do with how a person looks, for example, than that person's ability to deliver upon the duties of the job. How can someone be assessed to deliver upon the duties of a job if the interviewer themselves, they don't even understand the job? Now, want it means that they must want to be on the interview team. In context to diversity recruiting and hiring, it means that they must want to see increased representation in your workplace. Have you ever been voluntold to do something, especially something that you didn't want to do or something that you didn't feel that you had a role that was truly meaningful? How did you show up? Odds are you showed up a bit less engaged and enthusiastic to get the job done successfully. Consider the notion of wanting it in the identification of your interview team too. Have you selected someone who can bring value as well as understands the value of the role? Make sure that the folks who are on your interview team want to be an interviewer and have a desire to see increased representation in your company. Now, capacity to do it is another thing. Capacity in this sense means two things. You have the time or the bandwidth, and number two, you have the training or at least the ability to understand the information to make a decision, which is training. All interview team members must be able to dedicate time to assess the candidate and commit to collecting and sharing meaningful feedback. Notice that I did not say that the selected interview team must have time available. Recognize that most people are extremely busy, and if you were to ask if they had the time available, they would easily say no, as would you too, I'm assuming. Those participating on the interview team must be willing to make the time. You cannot have an effective interview assessment if your interviewers are late and are rushing through the interview, if they're multitasking, or if they're an absolute no-show. Furthermore, effective interviewers are not born, they're created. Thus, training is necessary. Make it mandatory that anyone selected to participate on an interview team is trained on best practice interview techniques to fairly assess candidates. And if you want to take it a step further, if you truly want to increase diversity, make it mandatory that people selected to participate on an interview team, they've also been trained on best practices in diversity hiring. You wouldn't make other business decisions uninformed and untrained. Don't do it here either. Here at our company, JTC, we've created training just for these occasions. We have a training dedicated to recruiters to understand diversity recruiting. We have a training created for hiring leaders to help them to understand diversity hiring. If you want to learn more about each of them, visit jennifertardy.com/workwithme. If now is not the right time for training for you and your team, then consider this. Download our newest freebie guide, which is the Platinum Checklist for Hiring Professionals, 10 immediate actions leaders must stop in order to increase diversity. Do you better understand the get it, want it, and capacity to do it approach to interviewing teams who want to increase diversity? I sure hope so. Let's move this conversation into the comment section. What's one thing that you believe interview teams in general need to start doing or stop doing in order to increase diversity at your company? Now, if you like this topic, you are going to love this other video, which is 4 ways to deal with biased hiring manager feedback. Check it out. The link is below. I'm Jen Tardy, your diversity recruiting coach. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.